Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my Daily Dose with Tim. Today is season 3, episode 12. And as promised from the previous episode, today we're going to look at why buy, rent, and hold is good to a certain degree. Because most people, when they do buy, rent, and hold, really amateur investors, when they're uneducated in multiple strategies, they do really what we call buy, rent, and pray. And so today, it's honestly one of my favorite episodes so far, simply because this is, unlike all the other episodes, most of the other episodes, this one, I actually had to do some research, had to do some number crunching, and had to actually pre-write out a few things. Whereas, as you know, none of these things are really scripted. This one is somewhat scripted just based on the numbers perspective, because I really want to bring everybody through the thought process with me today. And so that you can understand why we keep saying that you got to start learning how to invest. Again, nobody would willingly and voluntarily buy money-losing businesses. Why are we buying money-losing real estate? Okay, I want you to really think about that. And by money-losing, we mean on a monthly basis, because our lives are so broken down on what is our monthly obligations right now when it comes to bills and having to pay to survive and to live and to experience life. And so today, I'm going to walk you through one of the most basic concept, and we can start to elaborate on it, because I'm going to think and I'm going to bet that this is going to rattle a few of us. And frankly, even as I was running through the numbers, it rattled me. I'm actually using my very first property as an example today. And that is, well, I'm going to share with you in a little bit too. So this is why I wanted to say, stop buying and start investing in real estate. Why? Simply because of the fact that way too many of us, we get emotional when we are leveraging real estate as an asset class. Financial education is very much an inner work. You're growing from the inside, you're growing your mindset, you're growing how you see and use money and make money and spend money. And at the same time, though, really, when it comes to real estate, because it is really nice to look at shiny, beautiful, properly renovated or brand new constructed buildings and houses, and just, I know it's amazing, and I know it's very addictive sometimes, and it's really irresistible even at some point. However, again, I want to remind everybody that we love this asset class for so many different reasons. However, the fact that it can look flashy is not the main reason. Just like you can have all the wealth in the world, it doesn't mean that you have to flaunt it or flash it all the time. Because we always say it in our circle these days and in the trust retelling community that time and money freedom is the ultimate flex these days. And so once you've achieved that, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, so first thing first, I want you to really remember this, or if you're actually sitting down and writing things down, because funny enough, as so many people now over the last few years, when they're watching the Daily Dose, they're actually treating this like a course, and they sit down, they have pen and paper ready, and they make notes, they take screenshots and everything. And so regardless of how you're absorbing the material, I'm just happy that you are absorbing the materials. And just like everything else that I do, many things that I'm sharing with you, it's not from me, as in I am not the first person that came up with it, because I keep saying this, success leaves clues. I remember watching something like this that one of my trainers did way back when. It really blew my mind. And so we can go deeper into this. However, today, if we're going to call it part 1, so be it. I want to walk you through the thought process. And the first thing I want you to write down or remember is let the numbers do the talking. Investors, let the numbers do the talking. You gotta train yourself to remove emotions out of doing deals and investing as much as you possibly can. And I understand when I am going to be sharing with one of my favorite strategies of all time, and that is lease options, using it as an exit strategy to help people realize the dream and goals of home ownership. That's a little different story. However, we'll get into that. At the end of the day, when we're talking about real estate as a hard asset, it's not something that breathes or lives, okay? It's a building, it's a hard asset. So let the numbers do the talking. Remove your emotions from it. It's very, very, very important. Okay. And so I will have a few disclaimers as we go along. And those disclaimers, I'm pretty sure some of you can actually relate to as well. So here we go. As I mentioned, I had to pre-write this out, which I rarely ever do for these episodes, as you know. However, I want to share this with you. The tools that I have used are your inflation calculators, are your amortization calculators, okay? And they are also, and I'll share this with you in a little bit too, as we go along. But here we go. First thing first, this is my 2-bedroom and 2-bathroom condo in Burnaby, BC, that I purchased back in 2004 as pre-construction, okay, as pre-construction. Again, I cannot even begin to tell you how many things are wrong with that sentence, okay? I will sum up with one line, which is, I'm gonna be giving away my hard-earned savings and not sure if this building is even going to get built. And meanwhile, I am losing the money-making ability in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on how long it's going to take them to complete the projects. You might be laughing, some of you, because you're going, who takes 5 years to complete a project like this? Lots of builders do, especially when they're faced with different economic situations. And if you're lucky, they will do everything they can to deliver the project at the end of the day, no matter what. However, we have witnessed over and over and over again, when they default, they default. If you're lucky, they might give you some money back or all money back. However, most of the times, chances are you're not going to get anything back in that case. And again, I understand some of you will be very smart with me and go, well, you know what? It's usually a graduated schedule, so I'm not giving them the $50,000 upfront if the purchase price is $250,000. And again, I want to emphasize on the thought process. I'm saying again a lot simply because so many of you are watching this going, well, that's 2004. Who here buys anything for $250,000 at this point in any metro areas in North America? That is not even going to get you a little studio in most major metro cities. And I get it. This is why I say it's a thought process, because just bear with me here, okay? So if the purchase price in 2004 is $250,000, one of the main reasons why we love real estate is because we have the ability to leverage. That means we're not coming up with $250,000. We are coming up with $50,000 minimum, because most of the times, if you want to buy a rental property, it's 20% down. In my case, clearly, this was my own place. However, truly, this was actually not a 20% down scenario. It was a 30% down scenario way back when, for many, many different reasons, which I will not bore you with just yet. So with that said, $250,000, if you actually plug it in into the inflation calculator, what that means is that $250,000, in order for you to break even if you were to pay a cash, that means based on today's value, it is about $361,500, and that's 19 years later. So in my calculations, my first disclaimer is that I'm going to use 20 years in my example. Even though I know many of us, when we are choosing mortgage terms, for the most part, we start with 25 years or 30-year amortization first. However, most amateurs, like I was always taught every extra penny that I have, save up, save up, save up, and every single year, do the lump sum contribution so that you can really cut down on your total interest paid over time. Okay, I'm hoping that you're following that so far. And so what that means is I am using, even though this is 19 years here in time frame, however, I'm taking a number that is 20 years to demonstrate this entire thought process, because we're also not using the 25 or 30-year amortization to pay down the entire loan. Okay, I'm hoping that you're following me on that. And so let's keep going here. I remember in 2004, when I first got my mortgage, the rate was 4.54, and today, funny enough, it's actually a little bit higher than 4.54. And the reason why I'm writing down 4.54 is simply because of the fact that I think we all understand that since 2004, all the way till now, in between, we experience some of the lowest interest rates, historically speaking. So it kind of looked like this, okay? It kind of looked like this. So I'm just going to fix it simply because, again, the amateur buyer's mindset, instead of going into variables, a lot of the times they will say, you know what, I want to sleep better at night. I am not judging, okay, because sometimes we do make those decisions. Depends on the type of deals as educated investors also, okay? And so this is why I wanted to fix it at 4.54, because most of the times when they're not educated, they will say, you know what, I'd rather have a regular payment that I can anticipate and budget properly. So when the rates are changing, it doesn't affect my life that much. And so by definition, most people will do the 5-year fixed rates. Why? Because typically speaking, the 5-year fixed rates tend to have the best deal, the lowest interest rate, which means you are kind of making that decision based on how much it's going to cost you. Remember, educated investors in the long term will always look at how much it's going to make me rather than focusing on how much it's going to cost me. Okay, so 4.54 to 4.54. Now, rent back then on this property, I'm actually being generous because this is my number in 2009 when I decided to move out of it and rent the place out. I remember that 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit was renting for about $1,400 way back when, but I'm just gonna use $1,600 just to be nice about it. Everything after said and done, pity payment, as we talked about, pity payment, actually I need to write down PITIC payments. So principal, interest, taxes, insurance, as well as condo fees. And I'm just gonna put my second disclaimer in here is the fact that I basically just added everything up. And so the numbers here, let me show you. I actually pre-wrote a lot of these down. The PI that I use is $1,270 just because it is a $200,000 mortgage. And then taxes, I am averaging over 20 years at $200. Honestly, though, that is me being very generous because I remember when I was living there, the government or the city would actually give the homeowners who's actually living in those properties a decent break. And so I was already 15 years ago already paying about $160 a month for this. But I'm going to level with you. I'm going to just, like I said, be very generous about it. Over 20 years, as we discussed already previously, taxes, insurance, they always go up. I have never seen those numbers go down. However, I'm just going to round it up to $200 on a monthly basis. And then insurance, because it is a condo, so structurally speaking, the insurance is already included in the condo fees. However, if you want, as a homeowner, as a landlord, you can purchase additional protection. And so I used $100 a month as my baseline over 20 years, as a baseline average over 20 years. And my condo fees, I remember it started with $200 something. It went up to $320, even in 2009. So after doing some research in this particular building, right now this unit, because it was nearly 900 square feet, okay, it is already at about $600 a month for this unit. So just shy of 600. But like I said, I'm going to be very generous about it and bring it down because this is what amateur buyers do. They manipulate their numbers to make themselves feel better. And frankly, I'm talking about me because I was one of those people that really hoped that over time, my condo fees would stabilize. So I'm just going to use 1920. And this is not even really adjusted based on inflation just yet. So what that means is from a cash flow perspective, from day one, when I rented it out, I was feeding $320 into it on a monthly basis, okay? And frankly, because I moved away and I subsequently sold that property in 2010, just a year right after I moved out of there, I didn't really have all the numbers. However, what I do have right now is today, after doing some due diligence, I find out that that same unit in those buildings fair market rent roughly is about $2,500. So it sounds great. $2,500 for a 2-bedroom unit seems like it's on par because it's in Burnaby, BC, not so much Vancouver. And so $2,500 is that. And plus this building now is nearly 20 years old. And so what that also means is from a competition perspective, a lot of the renters, if they actually do have the means, they tend to look for something nicer, shinier, and prettier. And so that means if I actually had stuck it out for 20 years, maybe today I'll be cash flowing about 580. Remember, 1920 adjusted based on inflation, just like 250 adjusted based on inflation, probably means about 2,500 today, if not more, which means I probably would not be cash flowing. However, the fixed part is the mortgage payment, so you never know. And this is why I really want you to follow the thought process. I am using some numbers to back it up, and these numbers are definitely traceable, and you can crunch the numbers yourself if you want to use those tools that I mentioned to you. So here is the thing, and I want to put my third and probably my largest disclaimer for this episode, simply because the fact that I am not pro savings. Okay, don't get me wrong. I am not pro savings. It's just that the next part here, so many people is going to look at it as maybe it looks like I'm encouraging you to save instead of buying real estate. That's not what it is. Okay, so let's just do it this way. Like I said earlier, we pay down $50,000 upfront as our 20% down payment, leverage $200,000. And so at 4.54%, let's just say we hold it constant for the last 20 years. What that means is when you add up 1 and 2, not exactly add up, is that your total cost of borrowing plus your initial down payment works out to be $354,000. $354,709. Okay, guess what? How much is your 250 worth today to break even? $361,500. So based on inflation and based on what you paid in total to debt service, you're actually not getting ahead. You're actually not getting ahead at all. So if you're in a market that is not like Vancouver, Toronto, LA, Seattle, New York, Chicago, or Sydney, Australia, London in the last 20 years, you might already be in trouble. Okay, I want you to think about that for a little bit. I'm just going to round it up to $355,000 here for my calculations in a little bit. Okay, now here what I want to take a quick look at is, had we taken that $50,000 that we already saved up front, okay, that we already had at our disposal, we get ourselves educated, even if we do not hold a property. And this is why creative financing and private lending is such a huge and popular subject. However, most people are not educated enough on why and how it works. And so I do encourage you to get in touch with one of the strategy coaches after this, if this intrigues you in any way. Because here's the thing, had I taken the $50,000 20 years ago, and every single month, instead of putting that money into a savings account, I'm just going to continue to add it, okay, $200. Just add $200 into my real estate private lending portfolio and my private lending pool. And I'm able to lend it out on an average of 10% return, for example. Some deals are better than the others. Some deals are less. Depending on your risk tolerance, that number might change. However, when it comes to private lending, leveraging real estate, or in the real estate investing world, that number is, I'm just going to say, likely on the low side, just so you know. Okay, when you know what you're doing, that number, frankly, is really on the very low side. And so with that said, $200 every month, not every week, every month. Okay, because you're diligent, you want to create a better financial future. And then so every month you put away $200, and then 12 months per year for 20 years. Compounded over time. As of 2023, or 20 years later, okay, probably 2024, you would have roughly $480,000. So your $50,000 upfront plus $200 a month in your personal effort. 20 years later, you're going to be at $480,000. Let's come back here. Let's compare this. You're going to be suffering through $320 loss on a monthly basis. On a monthly basis. I don't know for how long. That number might go up, might go down. Eventually, only after all this is paid down, after all of this is paid down, then you might be able to start to cash flow a little bit. Okay. Here is why I want you to remember this number. I'm going to take this out now because here's the thing. Let's just say that this unit, and I did my research, if we sell it today, if I still had it and I want to sell it today, people are asking for $800,000. Actually, I found listings that are anywhere between $699 to $799. So again, amateurs will always want to manipulate the numbers. I want to look at the best numbers possible when I'm selling. So that's what I'm going to do with you. So I'm already giving you the rainbows and butterflies situation. Okay. So $800,000. I know this was in BC and this is not how BC usually calculates. However, it's just for making sure that this goes smoothly. And so I'm just going to say 5%. I'm going to use 5%. 5% commissions as my calculations here. I know it's 7% on the first 100 and 3.5, and then the agents will split regardless. If you are selling at 800, 5% GST, this is in Canada. So depending on where you are right now, really, it's GST plus PST on goods and services, okay? And so let's take a look at this number, $800,000 right off the bat, okay? Right off the bat, you want to do, 5% commission, which is 40,000, and then you add 12% on it. You add 12% on it, so that's 44800. And then let's just say closing fees. Okay, so that means you're probably, I'm just going to round it up for simple numbers. That means these are the fees in total you got to pay. So at this point, your take home, this is turning out to be a bit of a longer episode. Your total take home is going to be that number, subtracting that number. So 754. Okay, 754,000. Remember how much money we actually paid over time. Your down payment plus total cost of borrowing. We're not even calculating the lost opportunity cost of the $50,000 down payment you put in, what it could have done for you, which we already know is this. Okay, so your cost of borrowing truly is actually 304 because the 354,000 includes the $50,000 upfront. So I'm just gonna say 354,709. I'm going to round it up to 355. I hope that's okay with you. Okay. So on paper, you might be going, ooh, hang on a second. That's not too bad. If that's how much I'm actually truly netting. Remember, if you give me $100 and I pay you $110 back, what's your true profit? That's what we're doing here. Your true profit is the $10 after you pay back yourself the 100. Okay, so this is why we're calculating it this way. Way too many people just see that giant pot of cash at 754 and going, I like that number. Sure, I do too. However, an educated investor does not look at it that way. So if we're due to do the numbers right now, I think this works out to be 399,000 is your net take home. Okay, it's your net take home. That still sounds like a pretty great number, right? This is why we love real estate, because even though from an inflation perspective, our money did not get ahead, okay? Because 250 in 2004 technically is 361 today, 1,000, and your total cost of borrowing is 355. So really, you're probably only ahead by $6,000 after 20 years in actuality. But because it's real estate, we've got to leverage, and we bought in a market that we thought, oh my goodness, it's so great. Value just going to keep going up, 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 and it's now showing up here. However, what is this number? What is this number right now? What does it mean? How do we interpret this? Well, here's how we interpret this. 20 years from now, okay? Or let's look back to 20 years. Based on today's numbers, would you rather have $399,000 in your bank account or $480,000 in your bank account? Well, from a pure number perspective, I think it's a no-brainer that everybody would say 480. However, let's say after going through this entire scenario, okay, and doing all of this math, I want to remind everybody what is not included so far. Number one, your own work. Because this one, guess what? We have not even included property management, which means anytime in the 20-year period, when there is some sort of deficiency, anything that breaks down, guess what? You are the frontline customer service for your tenants. A, you're already paying your tenants to live there. B, you are offering 24 hours concierge. And because C, in the BC market, tenants have a lot of rights, okay? And this is why every single day I am so happy and so blessed at the fact that I got trained and I started to change my mindset about how money works, what is investing truly, and how to leverage real estate as my main asset class to invest in. And so that's why I named the title, Stop Buying and Start Investing in Real Estate. When you can do it right, which again, I will start to demonstrate in the episodes to come. I'm really laying down a lot of foundation and groundwork with everybody, okay? So going back here, number one, you are the front line, meaning you're not hiring anybody to manage the property for you. So you are there because you want to maximize your losses on a monthly basis when you were negatively cash flowing, and you want to maximize your cash flow, if there's any, by not paying a property manager. I get that, okay? And number two, repairs and maintenance. In the 20-year period, do you think that there will be things that will break down? Do you think that there will be tenant turnovers where you have to go in? Maybe at the very least, do some painting, update a few things here and there. Appliances will definitely break down over the 20-year period, okay? And number three, this was a condo, so special assessment. Even if it's not a condo scenario, guess what? When you have a single family home, you still have your day-to-day yard work, snow removal, bigger expenses, roofing, capital expenses that you would have to encounter in a 20-year period. Because if you don't do any of those things, and yes, maybe your property is still habitable, however, what that also means is you might not be competitive in terms of how much rent you can charge, which now will in turn impact your performance, which means you may not be cash flowing much at all for 20 years. What's the point in doing that? So these are the three major things that were not even taken into consideration and calculation. And so I know some people there will go, $399,000 is great. However, that $399,000 is the result of probably a lot of sweat and tears, a lot of sleepless nights, maybe getting into debt because maybe you bank on this property making you the big bucks 20, 30 years from now. And in between, if there are major special assessments and repairs and whatnot, you may have to take out loans to debt service that, to service all those things. So I know this is a bit of a longer episode right now, and I am not even really halfway through on rounding out this entire concept yet. I just really want to plant the seeds here, and we can continue in the next episode as our part 2 of this, because like I said, I am going to bet that this is going to rattle a few people if you do get it. And for some of you, you may have questions for me, and please DM me, ask questions in the comment sections if you want to. However, this is something worth looking at, simply because, as I keep saying, properties are like people. The older we get, the slower we are in terms of performance, and the costlier it is to maintain us. And so I've made so many assumptions in terms of what the performance is like based on a rainbows and butterflies scenario. I've also made the assumption of selling it at the highest possible price. Okay. So let's continue this in the next episode. I would like you and encourage you to take some time to digest this, because numbers don't lie. Let the numbers do the talking, as we keep saying, as professional and educated investors. So with that said, I know some of you might be going, hang on a second, I need clarity on this. Make sure you reach out to a strategy coach on the Trust Your Talent team to keep the conversation going. It's not like that I don't want to talk to you. It's just that this weekend, as mentioned, I'm actually going to be speaking at Canada's largest real estate investing conference. It's called the Multifamily Conference. And if you are thinking about going and maybe are able to go now, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday this weekend. I will share the link in the comments section, and I will give you the discount code that they have given me to pass on to you, and that'll give you 10% off on the ticket. And last but not least, we have so many different sessions and topics and trainings that are publicly facing, and they're completely free for you, because this is my life's mission, to push financial education forward, to help you see investing for what it is, and especially leveraging real estate, because this is a beautiful asset class. However, as you can see already, hopefully, that there is no point to stress yourself out for 20 years only to end up with less than what you could have done otherwise if you were educated. So with that said, thank you so much for joining me again. In the next episode, we will come back here and elaborate on the different scenarios. And I'm going to give you a more realistic way of looking at how this actually should have gone, could have gone, and the reality today. So with that said, have a great rest of the day, everyone. And thank you for joining me. Live well.